Now then guys, Quinn's Dude here, back on the Rad Music Chat channel. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're new, please hit the subscribe button, lets you know when there's new content. And if you could also hit the thumbs up button below if you're watching this, that would be great. Hope you all had a good festive period. So what are we looking at today? We're going to jump back into the 1001 albums you must hear before you die book. We're going with an album from the 80s. Released on October the 11th, 1985, is the debut album Picture Book by Manchester band Simply Red. Genres attached to this 10-track album is pop, soul and R&B. This album has, at last count, sold 7 million albums around the world. It went platinum in 4 countries, including the US and the UK. Amazingly enough, this album has 10 tracks. If you ignore the reissues with extra bonus tracks, etc., it was first released with 10 tracks, and 5 of those were actually released as singles. Simply Red have always been basically a vehicle for singer, frontman, main songwriter Mick Hucknall. Although many talented musicians have passed through the ranks, whether it being recording musicians or touring musicians or both, but Hucknall is now the only remaining original member and ever present. It wasn't until doing some homework on this album that I discovered that it also falls into a genre called blue-eyed soul. Blue-eyed soul basically is a name given to any outfit or artist that is playing soul music that is predominantly or fully made up of members who are white. Hucknall has been and still is the poster boy for blue-eyed soul, and this album, you know, although a debut, it's really easy to see why so much praise is heaped upon his vocal abilities. A band's debut album is in a lot of cases can often be their most diverse, and I think this is purely because in a lot of cases they're you know, sort of more fresh, less aware of what is perhaps their fully formed sound, and Picture Book is no exception to this rule, and kind of does go off into some playful directions that Simply Red over the course of they're up to 12 studio albums now would never quite be as sort of playful again, and that's not to say that the quality suffered at all. It's just different in that sense. So as I mentioned before, half the album's tracklist is singles. The first single was a song that everyone associates with Simply Red, although it's not their biggest hit and not the biggest hit from this album. But Money's Too Tight to Mention. Funnily enough, I didn't know this, and I wonder how many of you out there do know this, but I mean, Simply Red hardcore fans will do, but that isn't actually a Simply Red song. It was originally written and recorded by the Valentine Brothers, who were also a soul act throughout the 70s and the 80s. They had a moderate success with this song, but you know, Simply Red obviously smashed it, and this was, yeah, the first single. It's great song, obviously. I think even people that might not recognize the title will know it. It is dated somewhat by the lyrics of being about Reaganomics, and you know, it says did the ground move for you, Nancy, referring to Nancy Reagan. But you know, this album was released at the peak of sort of the Reagan era, and you know, dating it to that era isn't necessarily a bad thing. Regular viewers of the channel will know that in all my album discussions and reviews, I always mention the first track. I might not mention every track on an album, but always will mention the first track because it's such an important you know, the way you open an album is so important. On Picture Book, Come to My Aid was another single. I think it was 3rd or 4th in the run of singles, and it's a great way. I'm pretty sure the discussion of what should open up the album, I like to think that they were pretty much saying that it was a, you know, a no-brainer. Great tempo, really dancey track, and yeah, perfect album opener. Got to mention Sad Old Red. Really, really nice track. Kind of has a creeping bass line in it and has that smoky midnight jazz feel to it. You know, almost like you'd expect Nina Simone to start singing over it. This really does show Hucknall's vocal prowess. And at one point in the song, he's mimicking a female, and it's just it gets me every time. I just love it. Another notable track from the album that wasn't a single, but is a very popular cut, is the track Heaven, which was actually the second cover on the album, and this was actually a Talking Heads original. Really cool track, really like the feel of this, quite slow, ballady, but cool as ice, and lyrically very interesting as well, sort of talking about heaven as if it's actually a bar where nothing ever happens. When discussing this album, obviously, I mean, it's arguably their best known song. You know, track 7, which people know the theory on track 7's usually, if you go look at some of your favorite albums, you know, it tends to work that track 7 is either the best song or the biggest song or just an absolute killer song. Track 7 on this is Holding Back the Years. I mean, what can you say about that song? It's just it's a wonderful song. I also learned as well from researching this album that it's actually about it's inspired by Hucknall's mother, who left when he was 4 and left him to be raised by his father, and he didn't reconnect with his mother until much later in life. But Holding Back the Years, absolute stone cold classic, and the jewel in this album. Personal favourite on the album for me was actually the last of the 5 singles, so I don't think it didn't perform as well, but it's Open Up the Red Box, which is just again, like I was saying about debut albums, they didn't do another sort of track like Open Up the Red Box. It's quite camp, it's a lot of fun, it's quite funky. I remember from a kid watching MTV and seeing the video for Open Up the Red Box as well, and just watch it. It's really quite cool. Is it a perfect album? No, definitely not. Again, it's funny, the last album I reviewed, talking about the title track being just, usually title tracks are can be the strongest track. No, this again, track Jericho is just horrible. I mean, if the track, it's got this football style chant in it that says you can't go to, or you won't go to the ball. And it's just, honestly, wouldn't be so bad if the track, other than that, wasn't so vanilla and just so unappealing and just didn't do anything. It's just, but yeah, that chant is almost as horrible as, Mick Hucknall's chosen team, football team, which is, let's say he's obsessed with the colour red and is from Manchester, so. Quite surprising to me is the fact that Picture Book is the only one of Simply Red's 12 studio albums that makes it into the 1001 albums you must hear before you die book. But there we have it. Right, guys, that's it. As you know, I'm going to say, if you're a fan of this album, let me know what you think. Berate me or agree with me or praise me or disagree, whatever. I'm definitely keen to hear. And if you're going to check out this album because of the review as well, please let me know your thoughts. So that's it for this one, guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Stay rad.